You ever gotten so angry that it took you right to the brink? You didn't know if you were going to be able to come back from this. A few years ago, I got into a fight. And I say a few years ago, but it may have been many. But I remember like it was yesterday. I got into a fight in the bathroom at Best Buy. Crazy, right? Two gentlemen of another nationality had some disparaging remarks to say. For no reason, I was in the bathroom at the sink washing my hands, as you do when you leave the bathroom, and they came in and said some derogatory things, and I eventually said something back, and then they wanted to press the issue. They wanted to go up a level. Listen, you don't know me, little buddy. I have been taking martial arts since I was about 4. No, maybe I was like 5, 6. Because my brother started at the same time I did, but they wanted all the smoke that day, and they was going to get it because I had some things going on in my private life and my personal life that colored my decision making at the time. I let loose of something inside of me. You know, and it's one thing when you don't have those avenues to get out your aggression and pent up anger or whatever. You need hobbies. I didn't really have any. I watched TV and movies, as you see. That day, I put the paws on them. They got these hands, and I beat the brakes off of both of them boys. Listen, I wish a camera was in there, because I was in rare form that day. Was it an assault charge in the waiting? Yes. Yes, it was. Severe. Because I kicked the shit out of them boys. Did I more than likely need a chiropractor when my old fat ass got done? Yes. Yes, that is also true. Hello, Governor. Rick Steed, nupefromdaville. We just got done watching some of the most amazing episodes I have seen thus far. And understand, the road is long, but of the journey I have been on so far, listen, we started in episode 8 with Human Nature, and episode 9, The Family of Blood, in season 3 of Doctor Who, The New Who, where the Doctor had turned himself back into John Smith, a regular, schmegular, degular human. And he did not know of his time as a doctor, even though he's 1,000 years old. He didn't know. But he wrote down everything in this journal. You know, stories and nightmares, visions he had of monsters and creatures and other, past loves and crazy blue police box. But the thing is, when he was John Smith, he was a completely different person than he was as the Doctor. We got into episode 10, Blink, which was amazing. Now it was a one-off. It featured Sally Sparrow, and we didn't see her anymore. The Doctor and Martha were barely in it, but it introduced us to the Weeping Angels, which I have a deep dive on the Weeping Angels. Go back and check that out. It's called Dope Blink. But then, to close out this season, we had Utopia, The Sound of the Drums, and The Last of the Time Lords, episodes 11, 12, and 13, where we are introduced to the Doctor's ultimate arch enemy, his nemesis, the Master. I don't even know what to say because he's a full-on psychopath. And he's so different than the Doctor. And that's why I'm calling this particular deep dive Polar Opposites. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote about the duality of human nature and the idea that every single human being has good and evil within them. And that was evident, that was the theme, the trope behind his book, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I know it's a book, so many of you may not read books. I know especially our younger audience, they're like, a book? What is that? I've heard of that. Can I find that on Apple Music? At the library. Where is that? I've never seen one. The duality of man, the idea that humans have both good and evil within them is actually a philosophical phrase. I learned it early in life just because of being in the martial arts. But in martial arts, I was taught about that duality as yin and yang. Now, the idea of duality in man is not a new concept. From the beginning, man allegedly was created perfect. And he had one rule and broke that rule and opened herself up to a whole other side of being with the creation of sin. Wherever there is good, there is evil. It's been in most major religions for thousands of years. And it's based on the idea that people will always fall short when they're trying to do right. Now, that's not necessarily true. People don't always fall short, but sometimes they do. The whole duality thing is about having two parts, opposite meanings: peace, war, love, hate, up, down, black, white. All those things are dualities. And it's really about us struggling with our lower and our higher self, our human self and our spiritual self. And whether we admit it or not, many of us struggle with that daily. I try to live my life pretty righteously. I have not always been the person that I am, and by no means am I even a healed, complete individual. At moments, I glean a little bit of intelligence and a little bit of wisdom and might have something interesting to say. And I try to share it from the best of my ability. This is what I think. Now, if you take that as the gospel and listen, my word is the be all end all, I'm sorry. And that's on you. But if you find some meaning behind what I say, then by all means, I'm sharing it to help make other people better people as I strive for every day. Now, this story I told at the beginning was me dealing with my lower self. And that was because at the time I had not had any therapy. And I have been in need of therapy at that time for 30 plus years. I had some trauma, some severe trauma that happened early in my life. As we all do, it all looks different, and some of us are, Ike Turnered, where we become Tina Turner, you know, and some of us have bouts where you're some of us have the touchy-feely relative or maybe even a complete stranger, and, they get their ditty on, take that, and it does something to your psyche. Maybe that's your trauma. Maybe you're dealing with the good and evil in you, and evil seems to be winning. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, and the whole thing about the Jedi and the Sith is duality. If you watch Harry Potter, you have the Hogwarts and then the Death Eaters. Duality. I say all of that to say we have seen such great duality play out in movies and TV shows. But this felt different. The Doctor and the Master. We learned that the Master had made himself a human because he ran from the time war that the Doctor was fighting in against the Daleks. And he ran, I don't know if he had a TARDIS, if it broke or something, but he ran and ended up at the end of humanity, the end of time, 100 million years in the future. But he was a human now, an old gentleman named the Professor Yana. And he had a companion, an insectoid female, looked like she's played by a black lady, named Chantho. And everything she said, she started with a Chan and ended with a Tho. But when Martha sees the Master's watch, the fob watch, and it looks exactly like the one that transformed the Doctor in episodes 8 and 9, Human Nature and the Family of Blood, she knows that the Professor may be a Time Lord too, because he's got the exact same watch. Who else would have those watches? He said that he never really paid attention to it. He couldn't see it like the Doctor. He had never opened it like the Doctor. But Martha's overall interest in this made the Professor interested. And he opened it, and his true self emerged. As people, we have that. Sometimes we take our trauma, we take our pain, and we compartmentalize it. And it's almost like walking through a maze inside of your own mind. And depending on the right triggers, you can open a door to a different version of yourself. I remember once when I was in college, my ex-wife said we were at a party and I'd had quite a bit to drink. And I got drunk to the point where the next morning, I remember I woke up and I called her and I was like, man, I don't remember a whole lot from that party last night, like I see that I got home and I'm safe or whatever. And she's like, you don't remember what happened? I was like, no, I don't remember. She said, you started hanging out with the Puerto Rican and Dominican kids and stuff. She said, you was one of them. I was like, what do you mean? I'm black. And she's like, yeah, but last night you was Dominican. She said, because you got drunk and all you spoke was Spanish. And you talked to the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans and Mexican kids. And you was out there, doing the bachata and the merengue and, and listening to reggaeton. She said, I didn't even know you spoke Spanish. You didn't tell me you spoke Spanish. And I was like, I do? I used to speak Spanish when I was young. I also spoke fluent German. My dad also taught me a little bit of Vietnamese and Japanese while we were going through martial arts. But as I moved on to martial arts, I stopped speaking Japanese for the most part. I didn't speak Korean anymore. I stopped doing Taekwondo. I stopped speaking Vietnamese because I was away from my dad. I stopped speaking German because no one in America spoke German. I lived in Germany for 4 years. So I spoke it, I read it, I wrote it. I was fluent. But in America, in Kentucky, who am I going to talk to? So I lost it. And Spanish was the same way. To this day, I would love to relearn Spanish, and I might get a Duolingo or a Babbel, but I don't speak it. I let people that used to be close to me, my ex-wife, tell you, is like, I speak English and idiot. Whatever. The master was the polar opposite. He was the antithesis to the doctor, who, even though he did things in an unconventional way and he tried to help people, and he did help people, there still was death, destruction, mayhem wherever he came. The master was on the flip side of that. He was all about the death, destruction, and the mayhem. And he really didn't have any interest in helping anyone but himself. You know, when you see that duality man, at the end of episode 9, The Family of Blood, we got to see that duality in the doctor. In earlier episodes in seasons 1, 2, and 3, we got to see the duality in the doctor when he talked about the Daleks. When he talked about the Daleks, he turned into a different person. He started foaming at the mouth and spitting on people, and he turned crazy because his trauma was so deep. He lost his family. He lost his entire planet. He lost everyone and everything that was dear to him. So we see the most diabolical of people return to his life. He knew the master straight off because he and the master were friends. Maybe even, I hear, brothers when they were young, but they were friends, best friends. And of course, if you look at all of the great tropes in movies, your enemy had to have been someone who was your friend first, because they understand you, they know you. And it's unfortunate, whatever reason causes the rift there. Jealousy, just hurt, feelings of inadequacy, whatever is that trigger, your greatest enemy, there is no such thing as betrayal without it being from someone who is already close to you. The master puts Martha and the doctor in the most dire circumstances we have seen thus far. And even to the point of the doctor is defeated. He's defeated at the end of episode 11, and the master steals the TARDIS and leaves the doctor and Martha and John Harkness, Captain John Harkness, at the end of time with a bunch of cannibals outside about to take them. The end of episode 12, The Sound of Drums, they are defeated, and the doctor is reduced to Gollum, to Dobby. And Martha has to take Captain Jack's time hopper, his vortex manipulator, and leave. She has to leave the doctor, the man that she loves. She has to leave him to figure out a way. And in episode 13, The Last of the Time Lords, Martha has been gone for a year. They're on the verge of war. And Martha, with the help of the doctor, has concocted a plan, but she has traveled the earth and concocted this plan And it works. And even though at the end we praise the doctor because he always comes through, really, episode 13, saving our world this time, that's all Martha Jones. But even though we saw the worst of the master, we saw the best of the doctor, at the end, the doctor was far madder at the Daleks than he was at the master after everything that the master had just done to him. And maybe there's no parallel to the Daleks, destroyed his family and his home world. He has no world to go back to. But he just found another person just like him, another Time Lord. They're the last two of their kind. And the master is so twisted that he don't even care. I'd rather die than hang out with you, my boy. And the doctor cries. He cries over this. Because it's an all-new feeling of lost again. Even someone as demented and twisted as the master. Because he's the only piece of home that he has left. When the master dies, he cries. The master came from classic Who, and I'm going to have to go back and watch some episodes because John Sim played him masterfully. And even the gentleman who played him as Professor Yana did a great job as the human version and then switching to the immediate demented version before he regenerated into the character that John Sim inhabited. From the end of episode 13, doesn't look like we're done with the master yet. Someone with red fingernail polish picked up his ring. Now maybe that was his wife, because she didn't have on like a red dress, but she's the one that shot him. She bust a cap in him because she had a nice shiner, so it looked like, he had been putting hands on her, and listen, I can't say that I condone what she did, but by all means, I get it. I understand. At any rate, you have to be able to understand the darkness within yourself to find your way to the light. My darkness for years was wrapped up in depression. The end or the downward spiral of my marriage took a heavy toll on my psyche. Compounded with all of the therapy that I did not receive from my childhood. And I have been fighting my way out of darkness ever since. And it hurts, and it doesn't help that life doesn't stop. Life does not allow you to, hey, I'm going to step out of life for a second and get me together, and then I'll step back and no. The world keeps spinning. Life keeps happening. And I have 4 little people who depend on me. And I'd be damned if I let them down. Whatever your thing is, whatever it is that you're battling with, your sickness, your addiction, your vice, that darkness in you, seek help. Don't be prideful. There is no shame in asking for help. Remove yourself from the environment that triggers you. Those are the 2 least things that you can do for yourself. Yes, I know it's hard. I have been there. Done that, doing that. But if you're like me, you owe it not only to yourself, but to other people. Every day that I get to wake up and open my eyes is a blessing. And I understand this gift of life is why the today that I live in is called the present. My favorite scripture is Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest as long as we do not give up. That is my favorite scripture of all time, Galatians 6:9. Keep doing right. as long as you can. And don't feel bad about trying to do the right that you can do. Because if you do, you will be blessed beyond measure. You will reap a harvest that you can't even imagine, as long as you don't give up. Rikai Steed, nupefromdaville. Go through the description, look at my other videos, look at the reactions between Centel and I. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that little bell. Come back and see me. It's all about this and this.
Let me hear you say OV-ho, say OV-ho, then step this way, step that way, then step this way, step that way. Are you my friend? Are we locked in? Then step this way, step that way, then step this way, step that way.